Hi there. Welcome back to Authors on the Air. I'm your host, James Latwell. And with us today, we've got Allison Buccola, and her new book, The Ascent, came out just a little bit ago in May, but it is a lot of fun. And it comes on the heels of your stunning debut, Catch Her When She Falls. And we'll kind of talk about some commonalities there a little bit. But I really enjoyed the read. So welcome.
Well, thanks so much. And thanks for having me on. I'm
Oh,
excited.
it's my pleasure. So it was nice to. I just saw you real quickly at Thriller Fest, got a month or so ago, and there was already some buzz going about the book. That had to feel pretty good.
It's nice. It's fun. Thriller Fest is such a fun weekend. You get to connect with friends. You get to see like the writers that you admire. And so hearing from people who had read the book and enjoyed it just felt like it was very meaningful. It felt very, very nice.
Yeah, because we kind of sit in our little writer caves and do our own thing, and you venture out and like, okay, people say it's okay, but
Yeah,
yeah, people are going to be saying it's more than okay. It was really well done.
thank
So
you.
for folks who haven't picked it up, could you tell them a little bit about what the Ascent is about?
Yeah, so the Ascent is about a woman who grew up in a reclusive community, maybe a cult, and she woke up one morning. She was 12 years old, and everyone had disappeared. So her mother is gone, her sister is gone, everyone she knows. And when the book actually starts, we're 20 years in the future. She's living in Philadelphia. She's a new mother. She's sort of struggling with new motherhood. And someone shows up at her door claiming to have answers to the past. And the book kind of takes off from there.
That's a good summary. I love the log line. It's on your flap copy. Is what would you do if the past showed up on your doorstep? And that's what Lee is facing in this book. I mean, what is it about the past that and secrets that are just so powerful that I mean, we just immediately engage with that kind of a story.
I mean, I love stories with secrets in them. I think a lot of the book falls in the psychological suspense
Mhm.
genre. And I think that a lot of books in that genre are sort of exploring like who can you trust and who will trust me? Like who's going to believe me if I need help? And secrets are just such a great way of, do I know the people who are around me? Do the people who are around me really understand me and where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
So they're great at bringing up those trust issues. And then also, I think that the past, when you're like thinking about a story, characters are and thinking about your characters like internal struggle. There's secrets from the past and what they grew up with, and how they process that and how they sort of have to readjust their understanding of the past to really get by in life is it's a great way to drive a story forward.
It is, and it really works in this story. And Lee, she's a fascinating character in and of herself. And there's something about being a new mom and with that past and that abandonment that she felt when everybody she knew disappeared, that's kind of resurfacing now. How did you come to put her character together? Because she's really a fascinating study.
Oh, thanks. Well, I when I was thinking about the story idea, I'd been watching a lot of like cult documentaries, and listening to a lot of interviews with cult survivors. And I kept on finding myself drawn to these stories about what happens after leaving the cult. So I feel like you
Yeah.
hear stories a lot about like, well, what brings someone into a cult? What does it take to leave? But you don't hear as often like, well, what happens after someone leaves, and what does it look like when they're trying to readjust and like bring themselves back into society? Or like for Lee, she's trying to bring herself into society. Like she's never been a part of mainstream society before. So I wanted to write a character with that sort of struggle. And when I was thinking about Lee, I kind of tried out a couple different possibilities for her like current day life. So in like a very early iteration of this book, she was a lawyer, and it wasn't working. And then at some point, she became a new mom, and I was like, well, this is actually who Lee is supposed to be, because I feel like new motherhood it's such a turning point in your life where you all of a sudden have this totally different paradigm for the world.
Yeah.
You have this new person that you're responsible for. You have a totally new set of priorities. You understand your past totally differently and what your childhood looked like and your relationship with your parents. So as soon as I made Lee a new mom and she was sort of looking back on her past and her loss, or trying to avoid looking at her past and her loss, she really kind of came together as a character for me.
Yeah, it works. I mean, anybody who's a new parent, new mom, knows how fragile that particular period of time is, and emotions are running right on the surface. And and then you just run her through the ringer like you did. So, kudos to
Yeah.
you. Now, you mentioned it, you did some research on cults. Now, I'm imagining you weren't a former cult, survivor yourself, but what is it that makes cults so popular in some of the fiction we're seeing now? Because starting to see cult themed novels and shows out there. So, what is it about that mystique that attracts viewers and readers?
Yeah, I think it has to do with, I mean, I think I have a broader interest in intentional communities, and I think it's important to separate those out from cults. So intentional communities are these groups that, people join because they're looking for community, they're looking for some sense of meaning. And I think sometimes those groups can work. Like I think sometimes they're functional. I mean, there's lots of different types, like there's religious types, there's more like hippie types, there's like different ways that you can build a community for yourself. And I think especially, I mean, I think I probably found myself especially drawn to that idea like during the COVID period when you like feel cut off from like society and community and you're like looking for those connections that like all of a sudden you lost. Like, wouldn't it be great to like live on a compound with 20 of my closest friends and we like all like build our lives together? And I think that, there's something really appealing about that idea that people are drawn to, and something sort of, it's like an alternative. If you kind of sense that things like aren't totally right, or like that something's like not right here, then you're kind of seeking out something else. But I think we're also kind of scared of that alternative. And so it's easy to, I mean, and also sometimes it can go very, very wrong. So in those groups, they're like cut off. If they're cut off from the rest of society and sort of these echo chambers, I think when things start to get strange, they can start to get strange pretty fast and in pretty extreme ways. And so I think that like longing for something different and interest in different ways of kind of structuring your life, combined with this awareness of the perils that might exist if you try to turn away from the life that you're living, is kind of it's at least what's driving my interest in these. And I love reading cult books and watching cult documentaries too.
Yeah. No, it was it was a lot of fun to read it, and you could kind of sense her fear of where she is in life, with what she missed and people abandoning her and that kind of thing. It was a suspenseful read, and yeah, I was at Book Passage Mystery Writers Conference this last weekend, and people were asking for examples of book suspense, and I recommended the Ascent to the
Thank
some
you.
of the students there, as because you do have a way of just subtly building suspense and ratcheting up the tension as Lee goes through her story. And the way you do it is very, very subtle, but it's effective. I mean, you feel it, the hair on the back of your neck, like when she's going to the park or something like that. How do you think about that as you're writing a scene or a story like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe sometimes in my first passes, I will start out as too subtle, I would say. And so I'll do a lot of like character building in my first draft. And then I'll go back and take a look at it, or my agent or my critique partners will look at it and they'll be like, but Allison, you're like writing a thriller and what's going on here? And so I think when I'm going through and trying to make sure that this like suspense is building, I think it's important to try to keep in mind at all times, like, how is this character, like, not just what mystery is this character trying to solve or like what puzzle are they trying to piece together, but how are they under threat? Like, what is it that might be about to upend their life at any moment? And is there the sense that like something is like on the outside kind of creeping in and trying to get them? And so after I've kind of like gone through and gotten to do all of my character building that I like to do in like early drafts, then I like have to be like, well, I have to make sure that there's always some kind of looming threat here, and weave that in.
Yeah, and the way you kind of build in Lee's vulnerability too. I mean, she's longing for connection, and people use that weakness against her.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, she's a vulnerable character.
Yeah, very much. Now, The Ascent was your second novel, if I'm not mistaken, with the Catch Her When She Falls was your first, and this was a lot of fun as a debut novel. I mean, when I read it, I think this was in 2022.
Mhm.
It did not read like a debut author. I mean, this was a voice that you could hear, you could feel, and you carried that over into the Ascent. What was the most difficult part about writing your second novel?
Well, thank you. And I think that for me, so when I was writing Catch Her When She Falls, I was writing it, I was still thinking of writing as sort of a hobby that I was hoping that I could turn into something else. But, it's like,
Mhm.
you don't know what's going to happen when you're writing
Right.
when you're writing any of your books, but when you're writing your first book, especially. And so I joined a local writing group, but otherwise was sort of sheepish about the fact that I was even trying to write this book. And so it felt very much like a private thing for me. And then I was like, well, and if it's maybe someday it'll find its way out into the world. But when I was writing, I wasn't constantly aware that it would be out in the world. And the Ascent Catch was not a 2-book deal, but the Ascent sold on proposal. So I knew pretty early on in the process that it was going to be published, that I was writing for other people.
Mm,
And it's so different, that idea, like when you sit down to write and you're like, oh, people are actually going to read these words. I don't know. Like I found myself getting sort of hung up in my, my own head sometimes
yes,
about that.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, it's almost universal. A lot of people will say that second book is the hardest book you'll ever write,
oh
and
yeah.
for some of those same reasons that you talked about. You get in your own head, and it's like, oh my God, this is real, and this is the book that people are going to pick up and realize I'm a total fraud.
Yes.
That was my fear, and
Yeah.
but yeah. So you felt some of the same kind of apprehension there.
Oh, absolutely. But it is also cool. I mean, like by the time the second book came out, I had started going to Thriller Fest. I started going to some of these other groups, and had really started building a writing community more. And so
Yeah.
I had these writer friends all of a sudden that I could send things out to. I had an agent that I could send things out to. And so it felt like a more like social process. Like it felt like I had people on my side, which was nice. So that helped kind of like counterbalance the fear of like, oh, like now I'm putting this out to the world and this might be a huge mistake, but so that felt good.
That's very true. Now, other than Lee, when you're writing the Ascent, who was your favorite character to write?
I had a lot of fun with, I guess, well, can I give 2 answers? Is that
Sure, of
cheating?
course.
Okay. I
No,
had a lot
no,
of fun with Jacqueline, who's her mother-in-law.
hmm
And so Jacqueline is a therapist. She's a doting mother to Theo, Lee's husband, and
yeah.
very much takes Theo's side on things, and is a difficult mother-in-law. And she just kind of like came into the book fully formed, and she's not like an antagonist, I would say, but she's definitely like poking at Lee through the book.
Oh yeah.
And so it was when she came into a scene, I was always like, oh, that's a fun dynamic to write. And then I would say my other favorites were sort of the group. There's also a mom's group in the book. And so there's sort of
hmm
this chorus of other moms who are talking about their new mom experience in this group that Lee belongs to. And I belonged to moms groups when I had, my son, my daughter, by the time you have like kid number 2, you're like, okay, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. But they're really valuable, but there is like a lot of focus on the fears that you like, legitimate fears that you have as a real mom, but
Right.
very very blinkered, very overblown worries about like those particular stages of development. And so kind of like digging into that past and writing those characters and thinking about the sleep schedules and the eating schedules and all that again was kind of a fun experience.
Yeah. Yeah. When you brought up the mom circle that she has, her mom's group, some of those scenes were just hilarious. I mean, it, that humor that ran through there, and you could just hear Lee's eyes roll as she was hearing some of this stuff. It was great. And,
Thanks.
and yeah, you're right. Jacqueline is a great character, and I really enjoyed seeing what she was up to. Now we're going to end with something we call 3 quick hits, and that's from Lee's point of view. I'm going to ask 3 questions, and whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
What's Lee's favorite cocktail? What does she like to drink?
I think Lee's not drinking that much in the book. She drinks wine. But I think that Lee would probably be a little bit afraid to drink anything too hard because I think she's a little afraid of what might come out if she were to.
Mhm.
So she's probably a wine drinker and a cautious wine drinker, I would say.
Cautious wine drinker. I
Yes.
like that. Okay, what what's Lee's favorite music? Who does she listen to?
Lee, let's see, who would she listen to? I will say I was listening to a lot of Nick Cave when I was trying to get into Lee's head, and so I feel like that might be what she listens to too.
That's nice. And then finally, what do you think Lee's greatest fear would be?
Lee's greatest fear is losing her child. She has gone through a lot of loss in her past, and so she's worried something's going to. She has her like sort of some of the normal new mom anxieties, but blown up to 11 because of her past loss.
Yeah, no, I agree. That hits it right on the head. So, folks, we've been talking with Allison Buccola, the author of The Ascent. It's out there for you now. You'll really enjoy it if you like psychological suspense, if you like characters who really just, confront those demons of their past. This is your jam. So you're going to enjoy this. But also, as you're browsing the shelves, don't pass up this one too. It's Catch Her When She Falls was a really stunning debut too. So, Allison, thanks for dropping by and spending some time with us on Authors on the Air.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is great.
My pleasure. And we'll see you again soon, I hope.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are you coming to BoucherCon, perhaps?
I am going to be at BoucherCon. I'm looking forward to it. You're going to?
Yeah, I'll see you there.
Oh, great.
All right. Take care now.
Thanks.